Okay, so here's the thing. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for checking it out if you're new. Previously on this channel, I talked about the 1994 Fantastic Four movie and how much I enjoyed it. During that time, I also watched the other movies, and I had thoughts on each movie that I'd like to share. So today we're going to talk about the 2005 Fantastic Four movie. This movie had a big, messy development. Development basically began in the 90s immediately after the 94 movie was canned. Because again, they had to do it to keep the rights. So this movie went through various different creators. Some of these include Chris Columbus, the director of the first Harry Potter film, Peyton Reed, who has gone on to make the 3 Ant-Man movies, and Mark Frost. And they couldn't seem to make this movie work. And like I said, it was, again, just made to keep the rights. So in 2004, they finally managed to nail down Tim Story to direct the movie. And overall, because of all this mess, I question if this movie has any soul of its own. If you need any other proof that this movie doesn't have a soul of its own, they did rewrites after The Incredibles came out in 2004, a year before this movie came out, because they wanted to avoid comparison. Which, obviously, that didn't work, because we still do that to this day. So when I rewatched this movie, I thought I remembered liking this movie more. But this time around, I found it actually pretty boring, and I think it's afraid to be a superhero movie. They don't do any hero work in this movie. Now, I know I just praised the 1994 movie, and they don't exactly do much hero work there, but they at least use their powers throughout for that very simple plot. That being said, there are some nice moments, and the casting is perfect. Reed and Sue are closer in age than they were in the 90s movie, thankfully, and Chiklis and Evans are perfect for Ben and Johnny. So with that being said, let's get into the 2005 Fantastic Four film and examine what's good and maybe not so great about it. So right off the bat, I am immediately reminded that we need to bring back the little flippy Marvel intro. The new MCU intro was cool at first, but now it's too long. That being said, this movie also wants to be an X-Men movie with this quick little high-tech intro, but it only lasts for 5 seconds compared to the X-Men. We open the film where, just like in the 90s movie, Victor and Reed are former college classmates. However, in this version, Victor is a billionaire, and Reed needs Victor to back his journey to space in order to study the upcoming solar storm. In this version, Reed is broke and Ben works with him. Meanwhile, Sue is Victor's partner, who previously dated Reed in college. Victor, like I said, is a billionaire in this version, so not exactly the evil mastermind who rules Latveria, but I have to admit Von Doom Industries is a hilarious and very comic book name for his company that gave me very much so
Doofenshmirtz Incorporated
vibes. Meanwhile, Johnny is the pilot of the rocket. So like I said, this cast is iconic, and the movie does not waste any time immediately introducing us to all of them and their dynamics, which is more than the 94 movie did, I'll give it that credit. Like I said in my video about the 1994 movie, Victor is gone almost the entire movie, and Ben has almost no speaking lines until 20 minutes into the movie, versus here we immediately know where everybody is on the chessboard. So Victor ultimately approves the space mission, and before heading to space, they get their suits for the mission. Their super suits being spacesuits actually makes sense and is kinda cool, but of course Sue's has to have her cleavage out, despite, again, they literally say it's a spacesuit designed to hold in your body heat. I don't know what it's holding in of hers. It's also at this moment that the puns in this movie are already crazy 15 minutes in. You have lines like, Reed stretches for greatness, and the suits are fantastic. The puns are a bit much, but part of me questioned if this was them trying to do the comic thing, where sometimes their powers come from their personalities, but ultimately it kind of just comes off a bit hokey. So they go on up to Victor's space station to observe the storm, which will arrive in 7 hours. And during this time, we get a very awkward proposal between Victor and Sue, and I just have to say I hate this trope so much. when the villain proposes to the girl and she says no. Unfortunately, his proposal is interrupted because someone messed up the math, and instead of the storm arriving in 7 hours, it is going to be here in 7 minutes. And the visual for the storm is cool. It's more interesting than, again, the 1994 version where they just explode and they're screaming and flashing lights. This one is a big old visual effect. That being said, it's kind of ridiculous that Ben says he didn't see it coming when it's right there behind him. And the little glimpses of their powers when the storm hits is cool and straight out of the comics. I think we've seen a little clip in the trailer from the upcoming movie that they're going to do something very similar. Thankfully, the team arrives back onto Earth safely to be tested. And while their powers don't manifest immediately, the storm did give Reed his iconic white sideburns, which is just ridiculous and gives very much so the energy of Solo having to tell us where Han Solo got his name from. And I'll admit, them landing and not having their powers immediately kind of plays with your expectations. I know the Ben fake-out joke got me. Meanwhile, the unnamed bank gives Victor 1 week to spin a profit out of this instance. I think it's supposed to give this movie some kind of timeline, but it doesn't matter because the next scene we see them in is Victor losing the company. I've also touched on that Johnny is sometimes a minor in the comics. However, he's played by a fully grown Chris Evans in this instance, and so him being a pervert has a little less charm than in the other movies, seeing as he's a grown adult. But then again, I guess we've seen that plenty of adults still think they can talk to women like this. Though later that night their powers kick in, as Johnny's kick in while he's skiing to a crazy soundtrack. We also see a crazy scene where Victor has some kind of electricity powers, but he is too worried about the scar on his face and his potential balding to worry about his electricity powers or his very clearly green screen office. Meanwhile, at dinner, Sue turns invisible and Reed stretches to catch a knocked over wine bottle. Ben eventually gets sick, goes to his room, and changes off screen. Now, in my opinion, these reveals aren't as good as the 94 movie. They're not as shocking. For example, in the 1994 movie, Reed's powers manifest when Sue is about to impale herself on a piece of spaceship. Meanwhile, here he just catches a wine bottle. That being said, the VFX are pretty good. I think Johnny looks as good as he could for 2005, while Sue and Reed's look pretty believable. You're never going to make Reed's look great, seeing as human skin stretching, it doesn't stretch like that. It's unnatural, so it makes it uncanny. Meanwhile, Ben is in a big practical suit, which production actually fought for him to be practical rather than CGI. And I think ultimately, just like in the 94 movie, I think this is when Ben looks his best. So after a falling out with his girlfriend, Ben heads to one of the local New York bridges, where we get the most iconic moment in the movie. In an attempt to stop a man from killing himself, Ben causes a massive car wreck that definitely kills someone. Like, so many cars pile up in this accident. So how else does the team join the action than by having Sue stripped naked? Because of course, her clothes don't turn invisible with her. This was crazy. This is clearly very early 2000s / the big deal of having Jessica Alba in the movie. I doubt we'll see Vanessa Kirby naked in the new one. And again, I'll admit that this action sequence is a good showcase of their powers, with Sue shielding the civilians while Johnny controls the fire to protect the little girl. Ben uses his strength to save the firefighters, while Reed catches a man falling off the bridge. And after all this, the people of New York applaud them for solving the accident they've caused. Meanwhile, Ben's ex-girlfriend Debbie is going to hell because she puts their engagement ring on the ground, and this is so messed up because Ben can't pick it up because of his big fingers. But after this instance, the newscast dubs them the Fantastic Four. And each of the movies outside of the 94 version attempts to give them the team name, And trust me, I think this is probably the most harmless. Meanwhile, like I said, Victor's investors pull out of Von Doom Industries after this event. And I love that they, for whatever reason, chose to use the Jaws shot for Victor. So the team heads to the Baxter building to research a cure, where we get a Stan Lee cameo. And this moment just made me really realize how much I miss his cameos in Marvel movies. Rest in peace, Stan Lee. So they're all going to live here now at the Baxter building while they create a cure for their ailment. So this is where we get a fun sequence and montage of them testing their powers. And this is the fun I'm looking for in this movie. We see Johnny become the Chekhov's gun as he tries to burn supernova, and the team tells him, don't do it, you'll blow up the Earth. If you're not familiar with the term, Chekhov's gun refers to the idea that every element of a story is important. So something minuscule and unimportant that's introduced in, say, a montage or the beginning of the movie will eventually come back in the third act. Meanwhile, Sue learns that her powers are tied to her emotions, which of course they are, because the woman can't control her powers or her emotions. And of course she has to get naked again. Pick a shot every time Sue takes her clothes off in these two movies. It's not that much, but it's probably more than it should be. Also during this sequence they explain that their costumes were also exposed to the cosmic rays, and so that's why they're able to wear their costumes and use their powers at the same time. I didn't need this explanation, but this was very 2000s, where everything needed an explanation. They can't just wear silly superhero costumes. Meanwhile, Victor breaks bad. His skin becomes a metal alloy stronger than anything on Earth, and he kills his doctor to keep it a secret. I assume this was a way to get around him wearing a full suit of armor in this movie, since this is a more realistic or grounded approach to the character. You know, instead of him being a rich, evil king, he's just some businessman who turns into metal. That being said, him picking at his scar as it grows metal is a cool practical effect. I don't know why, but I have vividly remembered that scene of him picking at it since I was a child. This version of the team also does kind of feel like a family, or at least roommates, thanks to a montage of them living together. Here we see things like Johnny pranking Ben, while Reed and Sue awkwardly fall back in love. Again, I feel like these are the only good shining moments of the movie. So it's at this point in the movie that Victor has fully become Doom. He now has electricity powers, which is a very simplified version of his powers. In the comics, his powers are basically whatever they need to be. They're usually magic or energy absorption, which I guess is where they spun the electricity off of. But they usually entail way more than this. So with these new powers, we get another scene that haunted me as a child as he kills the banker who's been arguing with him all movie by blasting a literal hole through him. We also learn that his mask is an art piece from his home country of Latveria. Again, I think this is just them having to justify him wearing it, since he's just a businessman and not king of Latveria. Meanwhile, the team falls apart as Johnny names the team on TV, where I'm so glad their iconic names are just stupid nicknames he made up on the spot. I did like Ben's little "what I would give to be invisible" speech with Sue. It was one of the more heartfelt moments in the movie, and I thought it was cute that he called her Susie like he does in the comics. And it's at this moment I started to realize that maybe this is just Ben's movie. We spend a lot of time with him talking about how much he hates being a rock person. That being said, we follow him to one of his favorite bars where the bartender still respects him and he meets Alicia Masters. However, when Reed and Sue go on a date to the Statue of Liberty, Victor turns Ben against them, pointing out that Reed is trying to sleep with Sue rather than fixing Ben. Which, can I just say, I know in the comics Ben is portrayed as he's angry about it at first, and then eventually comes to accept it. But my god, man, you gotta give Reed time, and you can't expect him to not take a break, right? So anyway, Ben and Johnny both quit the team, and 2 seconds later, Victor enacts his revenge. where he turns Ben human using his powers in Reed's machine and kidnaps Reed. And all of this rushed revenge leads us into our final confrontation at Von Doom Industries, which is actually a pretty lame third act. I have to say though, Doom's plans for Reed and Johnny are actually pretty smart. He super cools Reed and sends a heat-seeking missile after Johnny, effectively targeting their powers. And these moments are great practical effects as Reed is covered in makeup, and visual effects, as again, Johnny's visual effects look great in this movie. That being said, Sue sucks at the whole invisible thing, as during her fight with Doom, she tries to go invisible and sneak up on him, but then she starts throwing things, and he immediately knows where she's at. Thankfully for them, Ben becomes the Thing again and says the thing.
It's time to end this.
No, Pip. It's clobbering time.
And so Ben and Doom duke it out for a little bit and end up in the pool of a neighboring apartment building. Which, can I just say, this pool fight is really cool for the one shot it's on screen. Especially knowing from a filmmaking standpoint that if this shot was practical, this one little 3-second shot probably took hours to film. And so eventually their fight makes it to the street. And I know they just landed here and the people of New York are curious and want to see what's going on, but you're telling me no one tries to run away? And so this is the one action sequence where the team, in coordinated fashion, each attack Doom one at a time, before pulling out the Chekhov's gun to supernova Doom. So Johnny performs a supernova on Doom while the rest of the team use their powers to rapidly cool him into a statue. And I guess I'm not totally clear on if the Fantastic Four have no-kill rules or anything like that. But he's like dead, right? Because all that metal is just his skin. Thankfully, we don't have to sit on that question too long as we end the movie on a boat party, where we see that Alicia and Ben have gotten together, again, just like in the 94 movie, from just one conversation. These movies don't have enough time to really establish Alicia or Ben's relationship. And Ben also accepts being a man made of rocks and tells Reed to stop searching for a cure, which I'm sure he'll keep that attitude up in the sequel. Meanwhile, Reed proposes to Sue, setting up our sequel, while Johnny does the final shot of the movie, writing the iconic 4 in the sky. And then for some reason, we fade to a The End title card, followed by a Dr. Doom teaser. Frankly, I thought the 4 was a great way to end the movie, but I guess we'll tack on this teaser. And I was going to make fun of this teaser as something they'll never follow up on, like most sequel bait endings. But no, they actually do follow up on this in the next movie. And that was the 2005 Fantastic Four. Again, like I said, I think the cast is perfect. I think there are some cute moments. I think they have great chemistry. But overall, I think the story is pretty bad / pretty boring. In an attempt to make it not like The Incredibles, it would seem you've removed all the fun from this movie. While I like these characters, they don't do anything except try to search for a cure for most of the movie's runtime. It's because of that I feel like this movie really just serves to set the ground for a, in my opinion, much better sequel, which I will cover in the next video. Let me know your thoughts or if you plan to watch the 2005 Fantastic Four before First Steps comes out later this year. Like I said, this movie will always hold a special place in my heart coming out when I was still a child, but I can realize and hope that we're going to get a more exciting Fantastic Four movie from First Steps. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours down in the comments below. If you liked what you saw here and want to be here for that Silver Surfer video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know when that next one's coming. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.